Eleanor Roosevelt was an amazing human, and she has a quote which we like a lot, which was, "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams." The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. And to me, this is actually a very powerful statement, because you can make things happen, right, by taking control of them. What's interesting for me with these three humans on our stage is each one of them are also making dreams happen. They are focused on their dreams in very different sectors. And I find it really fascinating the differences and similarities between all three of you in, believing in the beauty of your dreams and wanting to make them happen. And so we're going to start off. I'm going to ask each of you to share who you are and what's relevant for this crew, because each of you have this long list I could go through. And so what do you feel is relevant for this crew to know about what you're doing? I'm sorry, Tanvi, I'm going to start with you.
I've met many of you in the last day and a half, so many of you already know me. I came to Switzerland 13 years back, so learned a lot about the community and still learning. First of all, compliments to Switzerland. It's a Disneyland of the world. It's just so beautiful and so amazing in every aspect of the way. And I always felt coming in here obviously we talked about from Parag, we listened in from Parag that most of the people that leave their country to go to other countries are Indians. So that's like billions of us and millions of us. But not everybody comes in with a point of view to be in that country and contribute socially to the country. Now, I have been in the Swiss banking for the last more than a decade. I led up big technology projects for Credit Suisse and UBS, led AI, data science build-up, tokenization, and blockchain initiatives. But all these topics were all about making richer even richer. And in my mind, I understand that it would be so valuable if the economic independence can be harnessed upon, at least to the mass affluent, and not everybody has to think about making money by working their hours or selling their hours. Investments is another opportunity to build wealth and hopefully be able to implement a lot of those thoughts that we all very energetically engaged in the morning. And to build this ecosystem of economic independence, we need more entrepreneurs and not just workers. We also need people to be able to invest in classes which is beyond mutual funds and equities. And that's where my contribution after I have left the big bank is building upon. I also feel women in Switzerland have not been able to come into STEM. They're amazing and they're really, really well educated, but not very many women are entrepreneurial or are into STEM. And given the education of ETH, EPFL, and amazing universities here, we need to bring in more women in tech. I experienced it myself. I could never hire women from Switzerland. I went in and found one in New York and gave her incentives to come back to her home country because there are very few women in STEM, and I was hiring a lot of data scientists and technologists. So we would have to create that. Into Switzerland wasn't the same story in India 10 years back when I was growing up, but now we can all do tech. So we started Girls Can Code together with my daughter, and that was also giving back to the society. And I really hope to see how we as a community can help build more entrepreneurs, more women in technology, and more economic independence for everyone to build their purposes.
Okay, thank you, Tanvi, very much. And how girls, what's it called again?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And share the name of the group. Share the name of the group that Girls Can Code. Is that the name of it?
It's called girlscancode.swiss, and the story is beautiful. We wanted to just open a chapter from Girls Who Code, which is a really big global ecosystem, and they just refused to open one chapter here, saying, "Oh, you're a rich country, you can figure it out."
So we did figure it out. That's really awesome that you did that. Really cool.
We figured it out.
Well done. We need more of that. So now, a woman in tech.
A woman in science.
A woman in science. We have to.
So my name is Zina.
Hold on. We're going to give you this one. That's not working.
I can deal with any AV.
I know you can. It should work.
But Is it on? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. My name is Zina. I am a condensed matter physicist by background, and what I did during my research was to study how electrons and photons interact in a million times a billionth of a second. And people would ask, what does that have to do with anything? And what is the application? And there is no application for it now, but those basic science research and understandings are what builds the foundation of some things like this. So my fascination comes with the horizons of human knowledge in exponential technologies. And now I run a think tank, got 30 country chapters, 20,000 members, and we have so many people who are looking at what is coming our way in the deep science space. And things like quantum, genomics, brain interfaces, how is that going to be impacting the next chapter? And how that actually belongs, that knowledge belongs to every single one of us. I talk a lot about this moment of awe and inspiration of deep science and how that needs to be democratized for everyone. It just does not belong to scientists. It belongs to all of us.
There you go. Love it. Thank you. Thank you, Zina. And we're going to come back to you as well in just a moment. Now, Iris, you're having another focus, a woman in tech and science together. And hopefully, yeah.
So as you all already heard, my name is Iris. I'm a senior scientist at ETH Zurich, and I'm working on a topic that I think everyone can actually connect to, and we work on food, and more precisely on creating more sustainable food systems. If we talk about climate change, we think that our food systems actually have a huge impact on climate change. Around a third of the global greenhouse gas emissions are related to our agri-food systems, and yet we waste a third of the food that is produced along the entire value chain. So not only with the consumers, but still if we look at the globe, right, there are so many people that are overweight or obese, so they have a lot of calories available, but on the other side of the planet, a lot of people are malnourished. So we have a huge discrepancy on this planet on making the sustainable or the food system more resilient and more sustainable. In particular, at ETH Zurich, we work on alternative protein sources. So we work on plant-based raw materials, on microalgae, on single cells. We don't do vertical farming. We don't do cultivated meat. But of course, we can also set it into context, right, on the global frame and global framework, and we develop technologies on how we can make the whole food supply chain more sustainable. We also work with black soldier fly larvae for organic waste treatment, which is particularly relevant if we look that more and more people will be living in the city. So it's estimated that around 60% of people will be living in cities. How do we deal with the supply chains on food production, but then also with the waste that is created along the entire value chain? And we need to find solutions that are circular there.
Okay.
And we do that here at ETH Zurich. And since 2 years, we also have a group in Singapore, because Singapore is even a more confined space that we only have 1% of arable land. So we need to find innovative solutions that we think in the future will also be relevant for countries like Switzerland.
That's great. So let's stay with that for just a second here. So when you're talking about what things that are relevant, right? And you know both places, Singapore, Switzerland here. What are some things we can be, help us paint that picture of what might be relevant for us when we're talking about these, go 10 years into the future, your research has been successful, implemented. What does that start to look like?
So actually I had a very nice discussion before with someone who is here from Pontresina, I think, and we were talking about meat consumption. So we actually see that meat consumption, so not only the meat and meat production, the methane and the manure that is produced from the cows is causing the global greenhouse gas emissions, right? But it's also the land use change and the biodiversity loss that we have associated with it. And then if we want to integrate this or make our food system more sustainable, one real big trigger is reducing meat consumption. But of course, meat, you know, it's associated with economies, with livelihoods of people, so we can't entirely reduce or avoid meat consumption. It's also not recommended actually by the Planetary Health Diet. But then we had a good discussion actually on how to source the meat locally with people here with traditional methods. Of course, this is then very hard in upscaling, right? How can we feed our population, a whole population with, local sourcing? But this is a very good way on getting more connected to actually meat, more reasonable meat consumption. But one, very clear indicator from all the data that we have is that meat consumption should be reduced and plant-based resources or plant-based diets increase.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Iris. Now, my colleague Zina, you call yourself an exponential technologist. That's one of the monikers. Well, I call you an exponential technologist.
You can call me whatever you want, Chris.
Thank
yes,
you, dear.
I'll
I appreciate
do it.
that. So, but when we think about exponential technologies and some of the things which you see in the near horizon, what are some of the most exciting to you that we should be thinking about?
Yes. So we are about to enter a very special moment, I believe, in the history of humankind. We are at a point where we talk about entering the age of exponential technologies. We are reaching a point where a few of the different areas of human knowledge, namely our mastery over atoms and molecules with nanotechnology, our mastery over genomics, and also our mastery over zeros and ones and machine learning and AI, as well as quantum technologies, are reaching a certain point of maturity where they are not only actually accelerating one another, but they're opening hybrid areas of development which are absolutely fascinating. And at that point, the speed of development for where we are going is going to be exponential. And that's what's exciting to me, is what doors are those things opening? You mentioned what is interesting to me. For example, you've seen some of the work that we do at PuzzleX and cover it. We talk about, for example, spinach sending an email. And this has been happening, 7 years ago it happened at MIT. Now vegetation is actually being connected, hyper-connected, ultimate connectivity. We have, the work of George Church at Harvard, they resurrected the cells of a woolly mammoth and they made a meatball with it. The work that we're doing right now with brain interfaces, understanding what can be done. One of the members of our community, Carolina Aguilar, with the company InBrains Microelectronics with their graphene brain interfaces. They have not received any FDA approval or anything like that, but they're actually right now controlling organs from the command center. They're able to use these brain interfaces to control the dynamics of what is happening in kidneys. These are very, very interesting horizons because they are positive. My message of technology and deep science is always that of fascination, positivity. When I think about it, we are such a young species. We are not that old, truly, on this planet. Look how far we've become. This is fascinating to me. And how far we can go. It's not a story of doom and gloom. It's a story of what we can do with the tools we have. And I am here to say we've got magnificent tools at our disposal. And it's a bright future for me.
That's great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I know, here we go. Give it up. And Tanvi, I know you have echoed so much of what Zina has just shared with that. As also with your focus on exponential technologies, also with AI, and the focus in the banking sector and finance sector, but also in other domains. What gets you super excited right now when you're looking ahead, say, 5 to 10 years?
The real terms, I wish that all the exponential technology Zina talks about gets into practice as quick as it is built.
Yep.
So rapid iteration of a lot of good stuff, convergence of technologies is where the sweet spot is. So it's not about AI coming to life, it's not about robotics, it's not about nano, it's not about quantum. It's all these technologies intertwining with each other, growing at their own pace, but helping build solutions we could have never thought about. But building those solutions is one thing, getting them accepted and implementing them is yet another. As we have seen in medical sciences, we have done so much, but it took us 10 years, 15 years to build it in practice to help the humanity on being healthier, happier lives. So I focus a lot about building things that you can implement as quickly as they are developed. And obviously, it needs to go through trials before it is mass adopted. But that time frame of policy, of government, of implementation, people accepting, training, education needs to become smaller. If we innovate in that area, I think we're going to give a lot more to the society than what we can do just with the POCs and the pilots. So I think a lot about putting things in production, seeing how it works in a smaller space. I'm very excited about how you're thinking about La Punt and using that as a starting point to build solutions and then make it come to the horizon. So
What would one solution be that you'd love to see?
here,
Yeah.
I mean,
Let me ask all of you this, so get ready, you're next. Yeah. What would one solution be? You've been here now for exactly 1 day,
yes,
24 hours,
yes.
and as any good consultant, you know an answer already.
I would love to build an accelerator here, right?
An
So
accelerator.
yes, so
Yeah.
you already have the hub, you have the physical space, you have lots of people that want to contribute, so most of the ingredients are here. If it is an accelerator that gives entrepreneurs across the globe, if not across the Europe, to come in and build on these ideas and get a chance to implement it, because that's unique about this place. I think that is what we can do the best.
There you
So
go.
it's not just going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 examples. We might build 100 and 10 of them.
So we heard the challenge this morning, a net zero village. Here we have an accelerator. I like these both. This sounds good. I'll have to check with the citizens on Saturday.
Yes.
How would they think about this, But we'll go with that. Zina, what about you? What would you say, something we could actually...
What technology? Maybe it's because we were just talking that this comes to my mind, because we're talking about cement. And that comes to my mind very quickly because I'm a graphene scientist. My background is in the nanomaterial graphene. And one of the very interesting areas of development with graphene is that graphene added, about 0.05% of graphene nanoplatelets added to cement can reduce the carbon emission of the cement process by 30%. It got a lot of buzz in the media and everything a couple of years ago. So if I had to think of one thing that could right now be implemented, would actually be connecting this village with those people that we know in the UK and Manchester, our collaborators are doing that, to perhaps pilot something here, because that technology is available right now.
Right,
to be
so we've got the
implemented.
accelerator, we've got the implementing,
Yes, the
accelerating,
graphene concrete.
implementing. I'm curious what you're going to come up with now, Iris. Here we go.
So, what I actually would like to see, what we also wanted in Singapore, is that we build huge algae tanks, because actually we work on microalgae that you could implement in the facades. And then I was always dreaming of having 3D printers that you can use the algae right at home, and you have a smartwatch, and the smartwatch is then, telling you need so many calories, you need so many nutrients, right? But this is really, really futuristic, and we also learned in Singapore that probably this is not directly applicable. Yeah. We already managed to shoot the microalgae to ISS, right, to create life support systems, which I think is a very, very good example on how we can create circular economy systems that really nothing is wasted. Everything is used and reused, that we can also apply for circular economy approaches. But also relating to a previous discussion that I had earlier, there are so many misconceptions and misunderstandings on what is sustainable. Which food should I eat? Should I eat this tomato or should I eat this tomato? Can I eat meat? Should it be organic? Should it be not organic? And I think a very, easy thing that we can already do now or tomorrow is to go to schools and work on the education of the younger generation. Just to go there and bring actually the knowledge that we generate at the universities, at ETH, at EPFL, and really bring them to the younger people to let them know, what is discovered in science about the sustainability and make them aware. Because even when we go to Singapore and we ask the students, we did surveys at National University, they didn't know about sustainability. It's like, why should you do plant-based? What is this topic with sustainability, right? And how can it be in 2024 that people don't know at universities? So,
fair point. Yeah. All right, thank you for that, Iris. I appreciate that. I want to stay with you for just a moment. And that is, farming and the whole farm culture is very often not just about food production. It's about place, community, caring for land. And that, you already indicated this is, in a place like here, in this valley, this is a big part of the history and the future. But when we think of a city, as I say New York or say Bombay, or not Bombay, sorry. Mumbai, thank you. If we think of cities of millions, how do we reconcile this culture of place and this need of protein. How do you see that? Because you work on this urban, rural.
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting. So we had some kind of World Cafe on that actually in Singapore, because in Singapore, currently 90% of the food is imported. And then you also realize that the people are very disconnected from the food and the food production. They don't know where the meat comes from. They don't know how a grain kernel looks like. They don't know how a pig in reality looks like, a chicken, which makes the food system very prone to waste. And, I don't know, I think...
Man, it's a disconnect.
Yeah, just this disconnection, and it's a huge discussion on how can we, connect the community more to the food and the food that we produce. Yeah. And then, of course, these people try to do local gardens, grow the food locally, to connect them more and to also appreciate the value of food.
That's great. Any comments on that front, y'all, about this idea of how you're connecting what we're seeing in a little beautiful village like this with our urban centers of millions? What are some of the lessons we might take back and forth? Any thoughts on that?
I think we had a fascinating thought about community building while we were enacting our respective roles. So we have been the forests, and we believe if we understand and learn from how forests build their communities and survive for such a long time in perfect harmony, and we as humans can learn it the reverse way, we would solve all these challenges of building communities, not having a zero-sum game and you win and I lose, or I win and you lose, and everybody win or everybody loses. So that's a profound thought that I would not have thought about unless being here in person. So that's definitely a food for thought for everyone. But doing something small, as talked about pilots and talking about actually implementing things and build it up at scale, is something we do in software industry all the time. But try to do and engage in biodiversity, sustainability. It's not easy for us to just do it in the digital form. You got to do it in real, in a place, and then scale it up. And that is what small communities can bring for the larger communities. We do that in decentralization. We go into small little places. Vitalik Buterin and his Ethereum community is, to me, one of the great examples of building a community and building things together. So we now go into respective set of villages, and all the developers come together and try to build a community around it. And that is what scales, if people try and do things together.
That's
so
great.
To pilot it into one place and see how it works and then extrapolate would be my proposal to build small and grow big.
Doing things together. Now we're going to stop for a moment, and it's going to be your chance to talk with each other for a few seconds, and I'm going to give you 3 minutes. You're getting good at speed dating, right? So, all right, 4 minutes. Talk to your neighbor. What question would you like to ask of these 3 wonderful humans up here? So we're going to give you 3 minutes. I'm going to count it. Come up with some awesome questions. We're going to get the mics going.
What is that algae tank you're talking about?
I've paid attention.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Okie dokie. Top tip. Here we go, right here. That's Morse code. Okay. So, first of all, was any of that interesting at all? Yeah? Thank you. Here's enthusiasm. This is the front row enthusiasm. I like that. You know, it's always front row people and back row people. You know, everyone in the middle, okay. All right, so question time. And we've got a question up here. We've got a question right there. 2, 3. We got 1, 2, 3. Oh my gosh, this is great. Why is this side always the question side? This is really interesting. Yesterday was the same thing. Okay. All right. Patrick. Let Patrick go first. And then we're going to come up. Sabina.
Our team's question is, what does good governance look like to illuminate the good sides but mitigate the bad sides of exponential technologies?
Man, oh man, why is it these first questions are so easy?
That was for me, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Or for
so-
both of you, actually. You both are exponential technologists.
All right.
So,
We were just talking about it. I believe that the narrative of doom and gloom is usually used for election and for political gain. I believe that if you look at the history of humanity, we're here, we've been prospering. It's always up and down, but there is hope. So for us, it's educating people, not in a very patronizing way. Sit down, we're going to educate you about these things. No, look at the history of us, look how far we've become, and know that there are many things happening on the horizons that are going to be helping us. Maybe not in my lifetime, but maybe in my children's lifetime, right? So for us, it's about bringing that knowledge closer, because right now the knowledge of exponential technologies and deep science stays in the ivory tower of science. And I can say that, and I think that on the behalf of some of the, I think we all agree that ivory tower of science holds certain aspects of knowledge that we know things, right? No, you don't know everything. We don't know everything, and that's what science is. And to be able to bring that closer to people, create that trust again in the knowledge that we are creating, gives people hope, gives them access, and also allows the young generation to get more involved in that. At the same time, we have all of those unsexy parts: regulation, standardization, legislation, all the things that I used to do 5-6 years ago. So it's a complex ecosystem, but positivity is our message.
okay, so thank you, Zina. So, good governance was the question, and she kept pointing at you.
Yes.
Yeah,
good-
so I was like, waving it over to you.
Yes, before I answer the good governance, I think I would like to give the full form of CNN, just continuous negative news.
Continue, say again.
Continuous negative news,
Ah.
right?
Ooh, here you go. Yep, interesting.
So we as human beings are more wired in a way that we absorb the negative news and remember it for a longer time than we ever do with the positive news. Think about your own day, right? 10 things went well, and one thing is not as per your expectation. You would say, like, I had a horrible day. And that is what amplifies basically the media across us. So we always think about negative things and amplify it and not think about good things. So first of all, good governance. I think we are doing a great job as a society to prosper good governance and use technology for our own goodwill. And I do agree with Zenia, we were just discussing this. This is not the picture for the future. This is definitely not the picture. Unless we all give a few individuals the entire control of technology, this is not going to be the picture. So we all have to understand, and I do agree with Zenia, not understand as in like the way we are making you understand kind of thing, but learning and doing, and not to be afraid of technologies that it can only do harm, then it would not do harm. We can use the same algorithms to create fraud and launder money from people, and the same algorithms are used for cybersecurity, right? So it's the ups and downs of both things that would go on with anything on this planet, not just technology. So focus
Okay.
on the good and build good would definitely shorten the bad.
All right. Thank you. Till, and then... Well, Till's going to ask one, and then we're going to come up here and then go up there. Okay? Mic 4. I don't know if this is going to work. Here we go. Here we go. Use a stand up. Use your playground voice. Come on, use your playground voice. Stand up. Here we go. Here we go. Say it really loud.
It goes in a very similar direction, and you probably got that before, but
You have to turn it on here. Here we go.
and you probably got that question before, but I was wondering kind of how do you answer to people asking about the vulnerable world hypothesis? If you talk about exponential technologies. There you go again.
Just talk. Yeah, start again.
Yeah. How do you answer to people who ask about like the vulnerable world hypotheses with exponential technologies? It's a very similar direction like the previous questions, but this hypothesis that if we keep innovating faster and faster and faster, eventually we'll get to an innovation that ends or impairs humanity severely. And how do we make sure that doesn't happen if we exponentially innovate?
Is that directed to me? Should I answer that?
Short. Yeah.
I don't know. Which has? Okay, I'm good. My answer is, so what if we get to that point? I mean, there is no reason for us to become masters of the universe and continue to live for billions of years. There is always a beginning and there is an end to any species. I don't put a lot of emphasis on us having to become immortal. We are here. We would like for the continuity of our next generations. But if we really innovate that fast and that fast and that fast, and then there's a moment where we become something else. We become, I don't know, a consciousness that we've been able to connect with everything. Then that is the next evolution of us. That's what has happened.
Very good. Interesting. Thank you, Zina. Okay, we have one here. We're going to take two questions this time. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. I'm interested in food and nourishing the world population. So I have a very simple question. How can we use predictive AI and exponential technologies to solve our food problems, to only produce what we actually need and consume?
Okay, there's one around there. Okay, go ahead.
When it comes about supply chains and food, I think it's not just the predictive AI, it's also decentralization. And we know the smart contracts can create a traceability of where the food comes from, and AI can help making a precision of how much food is needed where. And if we are able to manage the food wastage, I think we would be able to solve for having enough food for the humanity. And it's the integration of the two technologies that I'm very excited about. And hopefully, as it builds in the future together, these technologies together would be able to solve not just the food problem, but also the water problem and also all the other climatic problems we have. So we can use the technology to pollute the climate, or we can use the technology to help us build newer ecosystems for food, for water, for air, and everything else.
Okay, Iris, do you want to pop on and answer that
Yeah,
too?
I can share some thoughts on that. Probably I don't know too much about the AI part, right? But I think for some things we also need to be careful on where we want to put the AI, right? And where it makes sense or where it really wouldn't make sense. For sure, in certain parts it does, but a lot of people now try to put a stamp of AI, of machine learning on a lot of things. But we, for instance, from the food perspective, we would be like, okay, but where should we use this AI now if we produce the microalgae, right? Okay, we can put a stamp on it, right, and try to use the AI. And for sure, I'm not, against it, and I think it will have its benefits. But we also need to be careful on which kind of areas we put it in. And for the food value chain, I think it's, one part is the food production, and I think AI makes sense. For instance, if we look at vertical farming, to make it smarter, to make it less resource intense, because vertical farming and a lot of the innovative technologies are very constrained by all the energy consumption. So we want them to be very sustainable, but they are not, because they use a lot of water and they use a lot of energy. If we can produce more smart sensors to produce not only leafy greens or microgreens, but really crops via vertical farming, so this could help. But then for the food supply chain, right, it's not only the production thing. And this is also where food processing or food technology comes in India, where all the rice, right, is on the side of the streets, because there's no storage way or no way of cooling in certain parts of the world. So it's not only about predicting on how much we need, but how can we make the whole food value chain actually more efficient, that there's not so much lost and wasted.
I think it's a really great point. More efficient, more effective in the whole thing.
And not making everything like a toothpaste that's AI-enabled, right?
Yeah.
AI-enabled toothpastes.
Okay, we have another question right here.
Yeah, so we have a similar question. We talked about also the food in the cities, and that we here have like the resource to be more independent, to build our own food, and to have like not the import from outside. But here you can do that because we are not a lot of people, and also we have the resources. And now the question is, like, in these cities where there's a lot of millions of people, how can you also like be more independent and also like just make your own food? Yeah.
Good question.
So it's actually, precisely what we are working on in Singapore. So currently, or like 10 years ago, I think they produced 1% of their food or nutritional needs locally, and they want to increase it by 2030 to 30%. And Singapore only has 1% of arable land, so you need to find innovative solutions. You can't use livestock, you can't use traditional crops like soy, pea, rice. You need to have single cells, cultivated meat, vertical farming. But then we run also, so you can have all those measures, but then we run into the issue currently that it's not more sustainable than the traditional sources that we have, like pea or soy protein, because of the massive energy consumption. And then, for instance, Singapore only has 8% regenerative energy. So if we manage to, get more natural regenerative energy sources, then we can renewable energy sources, then we can also solve part of that equation. But then also in Switzerland, I think we need to be a bit careful on how self-sufficient Switzerland actually is, because you have a lot of, mountain regions, and I think Switzerland is also importing a lot. And then in a global context, of course, we see that with a lot of conflicts that are currently existing, if we have supply chain disruptions, it has a massive impact. But still, you can't avoid this global nature that we are stepping in. So there's more and more dependencies, and we wouldn't be able to avoid it. But of course, you can increase your self-sufficiency to a certain degree.
Oh, thank you, Iris. That's a really interesting question to go into every store where we buy our food and actually look at where everything comes from. And see what percentage is actually, or even a catalog. I remember looking at the American LL Bean catalog, which used to be very famously made in the state of Maine. I only found 5 items in the entire catalog that were still made in the United States. And the catalog's about this thick. I just couldn't believe it, So this is, we're beginning to think the good and the bad of the supply chain. It's very interesting if you look at that.
Can I add one point to it? I mean, you talked about that not everything can be done locally. And there are lots of labels, because if you're gluten-free and you are keto-free and you're like looking at the dates and the expiration and where the food item comes from, it's very complex for a normal human being to go for groceries. So one of the founders worked on this entire process to make it give a score. And it was surprising for me, a lot of products very highly praised before with a lot of cost were not as sustainable as it needed to be. So this is the Yuka score. I don't know how many of you use the app, but I do suggest use Yuka because it's pretty close. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but it's pretty close to talk about the sustainability of supply chains in a score and a number.
U-cost or view cost?
Yuka, Y-U-K-A.
Y-U-K-A.
Yuka score.
Yuka score. Why, yuck. Yucca score. Okay. You're just downloading it? Well done. Okay. Yeah, we're at the end of our time. So I'm afraid we're at the end of our time. Again, this is like we could keep going and I wanted to give them a chance to say one last little bit, if I don't mind. You wanted to share something about a project that you're within the Girls Can Code.
Yes.
I'd like you to give you a chance to share that.
So I like to open up our latest project on Girls Can Code. Simi, if you could stand up. Anybody who has girls in the age group 12 and 20 and in your community, we are developing this new program for 3 months, building partnerships with some of the best artists in Paris to teach them generative AI. Because what we believe, girls mostly are very creative. What if they learn technology by creating better art, not just art, but also music and also videos, and also get a chance at the end of this to present this in Paris. I love that. Any collaborations, any ways and forms to do this. We are being supported in a small proportion also from the Department of Gender Equality in Switzerland. And we do believe that this is a big space where we can bring girls closer to technology without being afraid of maths and science.
That's really fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, and I'm sure you're going to have a few folks coming up to afterwards. Zina, you talked very quickly about the mastery over matter.
out of respect for time, I'm going to put people through that. If anybody wants to know my idea about where I think humanity is going in the next, 200, 300 years, I've got my opinions, but I'm not going to put you guys
Okay,
through it right now.
so
See?
that's
Respect for
perhaps,
time.
we're going to have a special session after
With some scotch. We still
the
have some left
solstice
after last night.
at the Corona bar tonight
Yeah,
at
tonight.
11:30. There's going to be a special session on the future of humankind.
Absolutely.
Right? That's good. Iris, what's the one takeaway you want everyone in this room to take away with them?
Yeah, I think the great thing about the food and the food system is actually that everyone can do something, and everyone's change in habit to a certain degree, everyone can make an impact. I went to so many conferences and everyone is just pinpointing to doomsday and that the world, everyone will be dying and whatever. And I'm so, just sick of only hearing negative news because,
CNN.
yes, because of course, we need to pinpoint in that, like I mentioned to you before, right? Apparently, some people still don't know how big the impact of the food system is. But at the same point, everyone here and, also the characters from the village can make a change, in particular related to the food system.
That's a wonderful, perfect closing with this group. I want to thank you all very much for joining us and for sharing your insights and your passion. And as when Eleanor Roosevelt said, the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams.
Thank you.
You do. Thank you.